Imagine living in a world where your voice is silenced, your dignity stripped, and your rights violated. This is the story of Tamar, a princess of Israel, who suffered such a fate. Picture a young woman, Tamar, a princess of Israel, daughter of King David and sister to Absalom. She was admired for her beauty, much like her brother, and held a prominent position in the royal household. Yet this very beauty became the object of a vile obsession. Amnon, her half-brother, was the one who harbored this destructive obsession. Amnon wasn't alone in his sinister plot. His friend and cousin Jonadab played the role of the puppet master, devising a ruse so cunning that it would ensnare Tamar in its web. Amnon feigned illness, and under the pretense of needing care, he asked King David to send Tamar to him. The king, unaware of the lurking danger, did as his firstborn son asked. Tamar, obedient and unsuspecting, went to her half-brother, prepared food for him as requested. But when the meal was over, the sinister plot unfolded. Amnon sent away the servants, leaving Tamar alone and vulnerable. He pressed her for sex, ignoring her pleas and citing of the law. Amnon, stronger and unyielding, raped Tamar, but the violation didn't end there. After the act, Amnon's anger turned towards Tamar. He dismissed her, yelling at her to leave. Tamar, in a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, pleaded with him to marry her. But Amnon, devoid of any remorse or responsibility, forced her out. Tamar, her robe ripped off, left the room in tears. The news of this terrible act spread throughout the royal household, a chilling echo of the unseen injustice inflicted upon her. In the aftermath of the violation, Tamar was dismissed and discarded, a stark reminder of the harsh reality faced by many victims of rape. This tale of Tamar is a sobering narrative, a reminder of the injustices that often go unseen and unheard. The trauma of rape extends far beyond the act itself, leaving a lasting impact on the victim's life, and Tamar's story is no exception. In the immediate aftermath of her violation, Tamar was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. She was overwhelmed by an intense feeling of violation, her dignity stripped away in an act of forced intimacy. This was not a mere physical assault, but an egregious violation of her personhood, her innocence and her dignity. A sense of fear and shame began to seep in as the horrifying reality of the situation started to sink in. The man who violated her was none other than her own half-brother, Amnon. Tamar, in her desperation, pleaded for marriage, a plea that fell on deaf ears. In their culture, marriage could have salvaged her reputation, making the violation less stigmatizing. But Amnon, fueled by a perverse sense of satisfaction, dismissed her pleas. Tamar's voice, already ignored by Amnon in the act of violation, was silenced once again. Then came the forced expulsion. Amnon, in a fit of irrational anger, cast Tamar away. She was sent from his room, discarded like a used object. This act of rejection was yet another blow to her already shattered self-esteem. The place that was supposed to be her sanctuary, her home, had turned into a site of torment. In her despair, Tamar tore her robe, a symbolic act of protest and grief. It was a visual representation of her shattered self, her torn dignity, and her violated personhood. This act was not just a cry for help, but a powerful statement against the injustice inflicted upon her. Stripped of her innocence and dignity, Tamar was left to bear the weight of her trauma alone. Her life was irrevocably changed. From being a princess, the daughter of a king, she was reduced to a victim, a silent symbol of the sexual violence prevalent in their society. Tamar's life, once filled with the promise of royalty, was now marked by shame and grief, a testament to the lasting damage of such a heinous act. Injustice becomes even more unbearable when those in power choose to remain silent. King David, Tamar's own father, epitomized this silence. In the grand halls of power, amid the whispers of courtiers and the clanking of royal armor, a chilling story reached the ears of King David, a tale of a monstrous act committed against his own daughter, Tamar, by none other than his eldest son, Amnon. The heart of the king, known for his courage and righteousness, was filled with anger. Yet, astonishingly, his response was a resounding silence. Every day in the life of a king is a flurry of decisions, a constant exercise of authority. Kings are called to protect their kingdom, their people, and above all, their family. But when Tamar needed protection the most, the king's throne bore the heavy weight of inaction. David, the shepherd boy turned king, the warrior poet, the man after God's own heart, found himself caught in a paradox of his own making. His anger seethed, yet his hands remained still. His love for his daughter was undeniable, yet his justice was chained by the bonds of fatherly affection for Amnon. His silence echoed louder than any proclamation. It reverberated within the palace walls, each silent moment amplifying Tamar's pain, each day without justice underscoring the bitter truth of her plight. His inaction became a haunting testament to the systemic failure to protect the vulnerable, the unheard, the victims of such heinous crimes. In the annals of history, King David is often revered, a symbol of a golden era. Yet, in this crucial moment, he was but a silent king, his voice lost in the labyrinth of paternal love and duty. His silence was not just a personal failing, but a bleak reflection of societies that choose to turn a blind eye to the victims of sexual violence, echoing through ages and across civilizations. His silence amplified the agony of Tamar's plight, a stark reminder of the systemic failure to address such crimes. In a world that failed to protect her, Tamar found solace in her brother Absalom, who swore to avenge her. Absalom, carrying the weight of his sister's pain, plotted his revenge. He bided his time, waiting patiently for 2 long years until he finally saw an opportunity. It was at a banquet, a time of merriment and celebration, where Absalom struck, ending the life of his half-brother and Tamar's tormentor Amnon. Tamar, who had been living a life of desolation, found a semblance of peace in Absalom's house. After her ordeal, she could no longer return to the royal household, a place that should have been her sanctuary, but instead became the site of her violation. In her brother's home, she found a refuge, a place where she could begin to heal and rebuild. Yet even in this sanctuary, Tamar found herself taking on a new role, that of a guardian to her niece, who was also named Tamar. Despite her own trauma, Tamar stepped up to this responsibility. She became a beacon of strength and resilience, a testament to her will to survive and thrive despite the odds. However, her journey was not without further pain. During Absalom's revolt against their father, King David, she witnessed the loss of Absalom's sons and later, Absalom himself. These were not just her family, but also her support system, her pillars of strength. Their loss left her grieving, yet she continued to endure, her spirit unbroken. Tamar's life was marked by tragedy, but it was also a testament to her resilience. Despite the injustices she faced, she continued to survive, to persist. She became a symbol of strength in a world that had failed her, an inspiration for those who were silently suffering. Tamar's story did not end with her violation. It continued with her struggle, her resilience, and her survival. It's a story that echoes through time, a stark reminder of the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Tamar's story is not just a tale from the past, it echoes in the lives of millions of women who suffer from sexual violence today. Her story, though centuries old, is a stark reminder of the enduring nature of such atrocities. It presents a mirror to our society, reflecting the same patterns of power abuse, violation, and silence that still persist. Tamar was a princess, a woman of high standing, yet she was not immune to such violence. Her status didn't shield her, it merely amplified the impact of the crime. Today too, we find that no one is immune. Sexual violence transcends social, economic, and cultural boundaries. It is a global issue affecting women from all walks of life. Just like Tamar, many victims are harmed by those they know and trust. The violation is not just physical, but also emotional and psychological. The trauma inflicted is deep and long-lasting, often leaving the victims feeling violated, isolated, and silenced. The aftermath of Tamar's ordeal reveals another painful reality. King David, her father, though angered, did nothing. This silence, this inaction resonates with the experiences of countless victims today. Too often, society turns a blind eye, allowing the cycle of violence to continue unbroken. In the face of such injustice, it's crucial to break the silence, to bring these issues into the light. It's time to recognize the devastating impacts of sexual violence, to support the survivors, and to seek justice for them. The echoes of Tamar's story resonate in the lives of countless women today. It serves as a stark reminder of the urgency to address these issues. It is a call to action, a plea for change. As a society, we must not ignore these echoes. We must strive to create an environment where every individual can live free from the fear of sexual violence. Tamar's voice echoes through the ages, a call to action for us all to stand against sexual violence and seek justice for its victims.